So I'd really like to begin then with my own story, and my story is probably different than any story of anybody else's out there. That's just how it goes. Everybody's story is a little bit different, but then there are similarities. You'll see that you can make connections between the things that maybe I've dealt with and some of the things that you've dealt with in your life. So my story is pretty simple. When I was a young man, I seemed to have everything going for me. I had a decent job. I mean, I wasn't setting the world on fire, but I worked as a plumbing technician, and I did pretty well with that, and was actually making commission and not doing too bad with it. But there were times when I struggled just like anyone else struggles. But that's not what it's about. That type of struggle. It's about a mindset struggle. It's about a spiritual struggle. It's about personal struggle, and that's what led me to the places that I went to and the things that I saw and did in my life. And at the same time, I had at a young age, maybe 18 years old, 17, 18 years old. I had a young child, my first daughter, when I was about 19, actually, was my first daughter was born, and I was married, and then, I actually ended up having my second daughter soon after that. And basically, one of the things that occurred in my life is I was a criminal. I was continually involved in some sort of criminal activity or another, but as it were, and as it goes, that caught up with me. And in 1999, actually 2000 it was, I was arrested for armed robbery and aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and I went to prison. I ended up going to prison in 2001 for 10 and a half years for armed robbery. And I ended up doing 11 years in prison as a result of that. And, what can I say about that? I'm not sitting here telling you that I didn't commit the crimes or that I wasn't the guy that did it. No, I was the guy that did it. I did commit the crimes. I did everything that I shouldn't have done. And if I had to ask and answer the question what my reasons behind that were, I would never be able to give a good enough answer to anybody, except to say that I had within me a battle going on for, I would say, my soul in some aspects, but also just for my peace, for my joy, for everything that makes us what we are, what makes us good. And so, by every stretch of the imagination, I created my own adversity. Nobody came to me and said, "Hey, Deacon, I'm going to take this away from you. I'm going to take that away from you." I did the taking, and I created adversity in other people's lives, and I created adversity in my own life. And for that, I can look at it in two different ways. I can say, be continually apologetic the rest of my life for everything that I've been through, or I can change my thinking and I can say, you know what, I'm going to improve my situation. But that doesn't just happen overnight. A person doesn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to improve my situation. Maybe they do, but it's a process leading to that point over and over and over as we go. You keep getting urgings, you keep getting pushings, you keep getting something that's going to take you into a new direction and make you turn your life around or do something a little bit different. And for me, it was a particular point in time when I was in my prison cell. I was actually, first let me back this up. My first couple of years in prison didn't go so smooth for me. I had troubles. I ran into people that, I shouldn't have run into, did things I shouldn't have done in prison. I continued my same bad attitude there, just as anybody would. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, if your attitude is wrong, if your outlook is wrong, if your mindset is wrong, your positioning is going to always be wrong. If you do not change your mindset, your outlook, and your attitude, your position will never change. And it doesn't matter if you find yourself in a $1 million home with everything you've ever wanted, or if you find yourself in rock bottom in the gutter, it's not going to change anything. You see, your position isn't where you are. Your position is where you are. And there's two different places, right? There's two different things, because I could have everything in the world and still be in the same low position up here as I was down there in the gutters. And when I was in the gutters, I realized this to be true. This was the truth of it. I found after time that if I was right up here, it didn't matter how low I was down there. And then continually, as I was better and better and better up here, my position would increase and improve, and I'd get better, and things would get better. So a couple years into my sentence, I ended up catching another aggravated assault on a corrections officer. I actually beat up one corrections officer, and then I went to jail for that and was charged again, and I got another assault on another corrections officer. I'm not playing games with you folks. This was the real deal. This is who I was, and this is what I did. This was my lifestyle, and this is what I understood. And so, I can't give you a good answer for that except to say that I was just continually thinking the wrong way, continually being the person that I wasn't created to be, wasn't meant to be. And so this is the result of that. And anybody in that situation would do the same sort of things if that was the way their thinking went. If your thinking tells you to do horrible things, you're going to do horrible things, okay? So, and that's who I was, and that's what I did. Now, I was in my cell one day, and I was getting ready to murder somebody who was a few cells down from me, where it was going to take his life. I was sharpening up a shank, as they call it, a piece of steel, and I was spending a lot of time on this, thinking about it, planning it out. It was premeditated by every stretch of the imagination, and it was an attempt had been made once or twice that had fallen through, and things hadn't gone the way I'd planned, and this, that, and the other thing. And it was actually a hit that was scheduled by the people in charge, because I was following orders from somebody who was in charge, because I wanted to make a good name for myself in prison, and that's how you do that. And so, I'm getting ready to kill this guy, and I'm sitting there sharpening this thing, and I'm thinking about the fact that I still have these 2 daughters on the streets who my wife is raising on her own in the situation they're in, and I love her deeply, and I love my children deeply, and I'm thinking about this as I'm doing this, and I'm thinking, I know I'm going to get life in prison as soon as this is done, because I'm going to get caught. It's not like I'm not going to get caught. I'm going to get caught. I'm doing it in front of everybody so they can see, and they're going to know it's me. Okay. So I know life in prison is inevitable, and as I'm doing this, as I'm sharpening this piece of steel, the thought occurs to me. Excuse me. The thought occurs to me. Is this what you want for the rest of your life, Deacon? It was so simple. The thought just came out of nowhere. Came directly from God. Whatever you believe, whatever you think, the thought just came out of nowhere. And I contemplated it. And I looked at the steel, and I thought about what I was doing and where I was. And I said, no, this isn't what I want from my life. This isn't what I want to do the rest of my days. But I don't know what to do differently. I don't understand what changes that I can make personally. And then it just came again. Another thought just entered into my being, just entered into my spirit, in my mind, and my soul. And it was, change the way you're thinking. Change the way you see your life. Okay. It's so simple. It's so easy. And at that time, I stopped what I was doing, and I hadn't put aside the whole plan. I hadn't put aside the whole thing that I was going to follow through with. But I stopped the work of the day, and I went down, I sat down, and I started to just really focus inwardly and think inwardly and pray and contemplate things. And, really referred to different scriptures that I'd known and thought of over the years, and just let them sort of flow over me and think about them. And it occurred to me that the first step, and it's all being given to me at the same time that I'm thinking it. It's being given to me, and I'm thinking it at the same time. And the first step that came to me was, well, then what do you want to do with your life, Deacon? And when I realized what I wanted with my life, when I realized what I really wanted at the deep core, it wasn't to have a good name in prison. It wasn't to be this big shot there, to go through these things that people think are powerful in that environment and be this person and do these cool things and be one of the guys. That wasn't what I wanted. There was some approval that I was seeking there at some point in time from people that didn't need my approval. But what I really wanted, regardless of any approval that I may try to seek from anybody, what I really wanted out of everything was to be with my family again, to be a regular guy, to be able to just get up every day and do the things that regular people do, that they take for granted every single day. Because I'd given that away freely. I'd given it away. I'd made the decision to give it away the first time I committed a crime. I became a criminal. I gave all that away. But what I wanted more than anything was to have it back. Once I realized that goal, once I realized what I really wanted, who I was and what I was going to do in life, what was important to me became clear. I started to write those things down. They always tell you, write them down. You have a goal, write it down. So I wrote it down somewhere. I wrote it down a million places. I wrote it down everywhere that I could write it down. It's written. It's taken. It's documented everywhere. What I wanted in life was to be back with my family, to be with my wife and children, to be a good father, to teach them the right things that maybe I didn't learn somehow, as much as my parents had tried. So what I did was I thought about this more and more and more about what I could do to get there, because the next thing you have to do after you come up with some idea of what you want is you have to determine how to get there. And it was so simple. It was still so simple. One more time. It was the simplest thing in the world. It was, Deacon, just take and remove all the things out of your life that are taking you away from those goals. Just remove them all. Any thoughts, any actions, anything you look at, anything you read, anything you listen to. If you're listening to a song that doesn't take you in the direction that you want to go, turn it off. If you're listening to people that don't take you in the direction you want to go, don't listen to them anymore. Go in the other room. I mean, I couldn't go in the other room. I was in prison at the time, but I could at least, kind of make myself over here and not have to listen to what was happening out there on the run. But it's the same. It's the same principle. If you want to change your life, you have to change what's coming into you, what you're hearing, what you're receiving, what you're willing yourself to be a part of. And so I just systematically started thinking about all the things that I focused on and all the things I thought about, and I started removing everything that would not take me towards my goals. If it didn't take me towards my goals, I didn't want anything to do with it. Okay, so I was removing those things, and all these bad things started to go away. At the second side of that was to add things into my life that took me towards my goals. Start doing the things I knew I had to do to get there. Start being positive. Start finding positive people. Start reading positive things. Listening to positive music. And positive whatever I could get in me that was good and righteous. I started doing that. I started removing and adding. In the beginning, it was just this thought and this idea, and I wrote some of them down. I put them on paper. I documented some of them, thought about it, contemplated on them, focused on them myself. But I was still in that situation. At the time, I was still right there. I still was demanded of me to do this thing because I put myself out there and said, I'll do this thing. But it's funny how the world seems to work in your favor. And in my situation, it was impossible. There was no way out. There was nothing I could do. It was so impossible. But the circumstances changed. It wasn't my control. The circumstances changed. I knew I couldn't do anything about it except for make that choice. I wasn't going to follow through, and I was going to take whatever circumstances and consequences came of that. I wasn't going to follow through. And I was afraid of what might happen because everybody was going to be after me because I didn't do what I said I would do. What ended up happening was the person that I was going to get ended up getting moved. Had nothing to do with me or anything else. He just got out of the blue, got moved. This happens a lot in prison. People get moved around, things get shuffled around. And he was gone. Maybe he did get word. Maybe he did hear something. I didn't see it happen. I didn't have anything to do with it. It just happened because the universe lined itself up correctly so that this wouldn't occur. Maybe because somebody knew somewhere that I may not be strong enough to deal with that situation. But I did. I didn't follow through with it. Okay? I got out of it. And as I started taking out all these negative things and adding positive things after that situation, got rid of the weapon of my war, got rid of the weapon of my struggles. After I did that, I was soon, within maybe 2 or 3 months, I was lowered to lower custody. And my life got better. And it was a blessing to me. And all throughout the rest of my time in prison, this was about year 4 or 5 for me in prison when this first occurred. And the rest of my time in prison was just a matter of, maybe there was a couple of things that I bumped into in my journey, but it was all improving every step of the way. I never went back to the same thing. I never went back and did it again. I was never the same person. While I was incarcerated, I wrote a book that talks a little bit about this too. And I wrote it. I took that was one of the things that I added to my life. The book was called Christianity, the World as Antichrist. I wrote that book while I was in prison. My family helped me get it published, and it was amazing. It's an amazing thing that happened. And my life steadily improved from that point till the final point when I got out of prison. And I never really believed, the first 5 years of my life, I never believed I'd get out of prison. The first 5 years of my prison career, I never believed I'd leave. I believed I would do it the rest of my life. Until I made the decision to realize that I could overcome any adversity. That's my story. That's not all of my story. That's not the whole story. But that's a part of my story. I've been out of prison now for over a year. I want you to understand something. In that time, I've seen nothing but greatness happen. I've seen nothing but improvement, just like I did in prison. It just got better for me and better for me and better for me and better for me until the day I got out, and it got better for me and better for me and better for me. I worked in Arizona with my father because he owns a plumbing company, and I worked there for him for a long time. I started a water filtration company. I did home shows there with him. My wife had bought a house in New York, and I had to wait to be able to move out here because I had to do an interstate compact. It took me 9 months to get that completed, and I moved out here to New York with her, upstate New York. She had an acre and a quarter. She had her eyes on a home that she wanted to buy. She couldn't afford it. We didn't have the money for it. But our house, we weren't upside down in our house. We weren't upside down in the one that she had gotten. She'd done good with that. She'd been a faithful wife. Just like Proverbs talks about, she'd been the faithful wife. We had this home that had value to it. You know, the properties don't sell around here very easily. They don't sell very good. We sold our house within 90 days. And we were able to buy the house of our dreams. And now here I am, a year and some change past being incarcerated in prison in Arizona, doing 11 years and having all these things happen. And I'm sitting in this house on 10 acres in upstate New York. And I'm doing a video for whoever might hear my story, just to tell people out there that you too can overcome adversity. I promise you that. There is nothing out there that you can't overcome. Not one thing. And it doesn't matter. Even if you've created your own adversities, it's your decision today to overcome them. I'm going to continue making videos, continue building an audience. If you want to listen, then subscribe.